All right. Hello, everyone. Just sending out the message that we're going live. All right, there we go. Cool. So this session, we're going to be talking about personal retreats. And I would love to hear in the chat if anyone has any personal retreat experience. Okay, I just want to make sure this is actually gone live. Okay, yep, looks like we're good. Cool. All right, so yeah, we're talking about personal retreats today, and personal retreats are one of my favorite topics because I think they make a huge difference. I'll share a little bit of the story behind the personal retreats and my process for doing them. But yeah, and then I'm going to also share a new personal retreat resource that I've been working on. I'm pretty excited about this. I've been working with well, I guess I'll save that for a little bit here. Let me know. Welcome, Keith. Glad you're here. Curious if you have ever done any form of a personal retreat before. Anybody else who's coming into, love to hear in the chat, if you've tried it, if you're brand new to it, if it's not something you're interested in at all, if it's something that you kind of know you should do, but you're having trouble slotting it in, where are people at in this, in their personal retreat journeys, shall we say. I put it off for a long time, and it was really like a mixture of a bunch of different things that happened around the same time that kind of like connected some dots in some interesting ways for me that really led to my my current thinking about this. I actually have a presentation prepared for this one, so I'm gonna share this this scene here. Give me 1 second. Yeah, I just got to change this window. Let's make this, whoops, keynote. All right, and we want to see, nope, not that one. All right, sorry. Preview of the upcoming slides. This one. There we go. Okay. Yeah, and start really about like why personal retreat is important. I believe when it comes to our individual success, we are our own worst enemy. We get in our own way. And the solution to overcoming that is to, as, oh, let me just make sure that my camera, okay, yeah, my camera's looking all right. This solution to that is something I picked up from the book Work the System by Sam Carpenter. Anybody familiar with that book? It's really not about personal retreats, but it is a systems book. And Sam Carpenter says in that book that the solution is to get outside and above our situation so we can see it for what it really is. And that really impacted me. That definitely resonated when I read that. And the definition of a retreat is a place for providing peace, quiet, privacy, or security. So when I'm talking about a personal retreat, really it's a place where you can go to think safely about things that maybe you wouldn't let your brain consider. You wouldn't let yourself go certain directions in the middle of your regular day-to-day, per se. Right? So you get into a different location, you get alone with your thoughts, you force yourself to wrestle with some of those big questions that you tend to put off. And then you come back with clarity and motivation. One of the inspirations for this for me was Bill Gates. He does this thing called the Think Week, or he used to anyways, where he would go away to a cabin in the woods for an entire week, no visitors, no distractions, and he would just think about the future of the business. That's kind of where he got the idea for Internet Explorer. And he came back from one of those, and like, the internet's going to be a big thing, and turns out he was right about that. So it's a different, like more miniature version of that. While it sounds actually kind of awesome to get away for an entire week and just think about things. That's not practical. However, I can figure out a way to get away for 8 hours really is what it takes, I think, to do a good, effective personal retreat, or 24 hours if you're going to get away overnight, for example. And if you are able to do that even once a quarter, what happens is you'll think about your situation differently. You'll get a lot more clarity on which way to go as you come back and you set your intentions, you set your goals. So the Think Week was an inspiration for this. There's another concept called Thinking Time by Keith Cunningham, which was also inspiration. So he wrote a book called The Road Less Stupid, and he said, I don't need to do more smart things. I just need to do fewer dumb things. I need to avoid making emotional decisions and swinging at bad pitches. I need to think. So really, the goal of the personal retreat is twofold. It is one, to provide to create the motivation that you need. You've got your why figured out. To show up and take consistent action on the things that are really important. And then the second part is it's going to provide clarity to cut the things that aren't, so that you're not swinging at the bad pitches like Keith Cunningham talks about here. And you kind of already have everything you need in order to do this, because our brains are really good at solving problems. They're really good at thinking through things. You just need to unplug it from the normal routine. So when you do a personal retreat, there can't be distractions, there can't be email, there can't be social media, anything that's going to pull you out of your ability to focus, and you're able to do like the deep thinking and really wrestle with these things. That's an enemy to an effective personal retreat. Okay, so the key concept here with the personal retreat, we talked about Keith Cunningham previously, but he's the one who came up with this idea of thinking time. Now, he defines thinking time as just time set to think, and he actually does it analog. He gets a notebook and a pen, he sits in his chair, and he forces himself just to write about things. He doesn't let himself get up for like hours at a time. That's not really what I'm talking about with this, but that concept, I've kind of taken a different spin on it, where what I do is I actually block out regular time on my calendar so that I can just think about things. Work on the business instead of in the business is another way to say it, where you kind of are giving yourself permission to think about why and consider, how are the parts of this system aligning to produce the results that we've been getting. And if we want different results, let's change the inputs or let's change the processes, right? But in the day-to-day, the busyness, I got to do this, and this, and you're just knocking down the next domino. You don't have time to go into that different mode. So I actually have time on my calendar where I do this thinking time. And then that actually is coupled with the concept of this 12-week year as the basis of the personal retreat. Anybody read the 12-week year by Brian Moran and Michael Lennington? It's a pretty good book. It's a little bit sensational for me, but there's a really powerful idea in here. And that is that most people will set annual goals. And when you set an annual goal, you tend to procrastinate for about the first 10 months, and then you really go hard at the end. Maybe you hit it, maybe you don't, but even if you don't get all the way there, you've almost hit it, and now you've got to set another goal, and you repeat the process next year. With the 12-week year, you basically shorten that time frame from a year to 3 months or 90 days. And what that does is it gives you the ability to really push hard for a period of time, but then you've completed one feedback loop and you can make adjustments as necessary. So you can actually, if you shorten the time frame, actually get about as much done in a quarter as most people do when they set these annual goals. But when you get 4 different feedback loops in, you actually make a lot more progress. All right, so I love the idea of breaking things down into quarters, but I had tried to do this 12-week year method and I wasn't getting any traction. Figured I was the problem, so I decided to really just do whatever I could to make it be successful by trying a personal retreat, and that's when things really clicked for me. So there's a couple things that you need to have when you are setting these 12-week year goals, I think. And this is what the personal retreat gives you. Number one, you need to know your why. The clearer your thinking, the stronger your why. The stronger your why, the greater your motivation. The stronger your motivation, the more consistent your action. And that consistent action is the key. Simon Sinek talks about taking consistent action and how consistency beats intensity, with the metaphor of intensity is like going to the dentist, but consistency is brushing every day. So consistency comes from understanding your why, having that clear motivation behind the things that you do. That's where the personal retreat comes in. All right, so when you are planning your personal retreat, there's some specific things that you should keep in mind here. The first thing is that I really do believe you need to get away. You need to get into a different location. Your environment affects the way that you think a lot more than we would care to admit. And if you just go the same places that you've always gone to do your regular work, your brain is just going to automatically start priming the pump to do the regular work. When you go someplace new and you go someplace novel, that's when it thinks about things differently. So I really do believe that if you're going to do a personal retreat, don't stay at home. Don't go somewhere that you go frequently. It's better if you can get into nature, if you can get away, but you don't really have to do that. I mean, this could be as simple as if you really didn't want to spend any money on a personal retreat, you could just go to the library and get one of those rooms that you can rent for free, whatever. Like you can book one of those rooms with the whiteboard or whatever and set up your computer in there, as long as you're not checking email and things like that. That could be the place that you do your personal retreat. The best version of this, in my opinion, is the one where you get away overnight, because overnight you're going to continue to think about these things and your brain's going to kind of connect some dots, dot some I's, cross some T's as you sleep. And then if you give yourself some space the next day, even if it's just in the drive home, you will continue to noodle on those things and you'll get kind of like the best, most crystallized version of those thoughts. So if you're staying overnight, what you want to bring are tools that you need in order to think. So pens, pencils, notebooks, workbooks. If you're going overnight, food, drink, change of clothes, stop kit. Do not bring any additional work. Do not connect your devices to the internet. And do not bring any distractions. So even, high quality distractions like books, movies, etc. Those you don't want to give your brain the easy out. As long as you provide a source of dopamine at arm's length, your brain's going to try to grab onto that. So don't bring those. Just what you need to actually sit and do the hard stuff and wrestle with your thoughts, which is actually kind of an interesting thing about personal retreats, is that you're not really doing anything physical, but you will be exhausted by the end, because this is a pretty grueling mental process. Your brain is used to looking for shortcuts. It's used to taking the easy way out. And when you cut out all the dopamine escapes, it's going to get tired, but it will be worth it. So here is the whole process, step by step. I'm going to break all these down here for you. So we start by reviewing, I call it a life theme, but really it's like a personal mission statement or core values. Reviewing your journal entries, reviewing your ideal future, and for me, that's also my eulogy. I'll show you what that looks like in a little bit. The wheel of life, retrospective. There's two parts to the retrospective, and there's a break in between. That's intentional. Then you set your intentions for the next quarter, and you review or revise your perfect week, which is basically like a weekly calendar where you time block everything, but it's not the specific things you're doing. It's really just like the modes that you're going to be in. All right, so let's get into this. When I talk about a life theme is a one-sentence personal mission statement that encapsulates your life's purpose. There's a process that I've developed for this. There's 5 steps to crafting your life theme. I actually have, so my wife Rachel and I have done live cohorts with this in the past. We've created what we call a hybrid cohort. So it's a bunch of video lessons, but then there are periodic live calls inside of our community. So you can go through at your own pace, but still get questions answered if you are interested in that sort of thing. So that community is library.practicalpkm.com. Actually, I'll put that in the chat. So this is the community with the life theme hybrid cohort. So you get that when you join practicalpkm.com. You can find out all the details there. Actually, let me see. Okay. But just to walk through this real quick, identify your moments of impact. These are really the moments where you've come alive, the things that really were significant. Dare to dream. I found that especially as you progress in your life, let's say, just to be nice, as you get older, your experience tempers what you think is possible. And so this is kind of like giving yourself permission to think big again. Which a lot of people, from my experience, need more help doing that than they do being realistic. So that's a push to, like, if anything was possible, what would it look like for you? Then we're going to create an image. So specifically, an image about our ideal future. What's that going to look like as we move towards that? And then from that image, so that's all like divergent. And then from there, we converge towards the end. So we've got this picture of what we want our life to look like. We're going to slowly make progress towards that. We're going to try to live out elements of that right now. And then what we do is we identify the core values that are, so the things that are actually important to us. Hopefully those are reflected in that image. That's going to create a stronger why. And then the life theme, that's a single sentence personal mission statement that acts as the filter. So we, in the moment, can decide what is the thing that I should do. You know, there's a whole bunch of options. If something aligns with the life theme, I go for it. If it doesn't align for the life theme, it's an automatic no. All right, so what this does is it provides two things. Number one, the motivation to consistently take action on the things that are important. And then number two, it's going to provide clarity. But before we get there, the reason that the motivation is so important is it's much more powerful than willpower. I like to contrast these side by side. So with willpower, this is limited, it's backward focused, and it's often used as an excuse for why we didn't do something. But motivation is renewable, it's forward focused, and it's used as permission. In fact, in the cohort, we talk about this a little bit, and I share a newspaper clipping of this mom who the car fell on her 16-year-old son as he was doing some work on it, and she lifted up the car so he could move out. Now, obviously, you don't want to be in that constant state of like fight versus flight. But just to show you the power of motivation, when you're really motivated, you can do some pretty incredible things. So the why provides the motivation. There's three critical components to motivation. This comes from the book. Actually, I should try to grab links to these books. The book that has the three components of motivation that I really like is called Master Your Motivation by Susan Fowler. It's a really, really good book that honestly, I was not too excited to actually read. Here's the link to that. Master Your Motivation. And the three components of motivation, so really the ingredients, are first of all, choice. So you don't actually need to have other options. You just need to recognize that you have the ability to get different options if you want them. So if you're considering, leaving your job, which is really something that I went through a couple of years ago, you don't need to have, a whole bunch of other offers lined up. You just have to believe that you can actually get another job if you need it. So you can walk through those other doors. There are other possibilities, basically. Another component of motivation is connection. If your vision doesn't include others, it's too small. The real powerful whys always are in service of other people. Not that you have to, sell everything and become a monk, but just, you're making the world a better place. It's not just all about you. Those tend to be more motivating. And then the third part is competence. So you have to have the skill, or at least believe you have the capacity to get the skill to do the thing, which is why one of my personal core values is keep growing, keep growing. Another one is permanent beta. So I'm always trying to learn. I'm always trying to improve. So that's the motivation piece. And then the last part is the second part is the clarity. So the clarity is so you can cut the things that don't hit the mark. Now, I mentioned my life theme previously. It is I help people find their why, multiply their time and talent, leave a bigger dent in the universe. Everything I do connects back to this life theme in some way, shape, or form. How directly it connects really is irrelevant. It's really just, do I see a connection? Because that's going to be motivating to me then. If I feel like if I say yes to this thing, it's actually helping me live out my life theme. So that's the constant question in the back of my mind is, how does this possibility, this thing I'm considering, how does it actually connect to my life theme? And then a shorter version of this, which I find even more helpful to kind of really summarize this. The thing that would go on my personal business card if I were to have one would be I'm a multiplier. I help people multiply their talent. I help people do the things that maybe they want to do or they believe they can do. They just need someone to believe in them, show them the way, that sort of thing. That's why I put together that community. It's why I do all the stuff that I do online. It's all got a productivity bent to it, but it's all about doing more of what really matters. It's not cranking more widgets. It's not, shipping more whatevers. It's actually doing the stuff that matters. So once you have this life theme, though, it's important that you check in on it regularly. So it doesn't have to be set in stone. It doesn't have to be forever. It's not carved in a stone tablet. It's something that creates motivation and it provides clarity. And you give yourself permission to change it when you do your personal retreat. So I have actually changed my life theme in the past. So you make your best guess, you give it your best effort, but then you've got those feedback loops. So you are constantly reevaluating. Next piece of this is the core values. So core values are really like your guiding principles. They're typically identified, maybe people are familiar with core values from an organizational standpoint. And that's basically what I did is I took that concept and I applied it to my personal life and my family as well. But that is actually where this came from, was the Mission to Mars exercise by, I think it was Jim Collins and Good to Great. And basically this was, if you could send 5 people who embodied everything that was best about your company to an alien world, who would they be and what would they embody? And asking that question is interesting. I've done this with teams and organizations in the past, and it's always been a lot of fun. And it provides that clarity, like this is why we're here. This is who we're trying to help. This is who we're here to serve. But the key is that these core values cannot be aspirational. They have to be reflective of who you really are. So these are our Schmitz family core values. In 2017, my wife and I got away overnight, and we came up with, first of all, a Google Doc, which we called our Schmitz Family Guiding Principles. So it was kind of defining what we wanted our family to look like and what we wanted our relationship with each other to look like, our relationship with our kids. We identified specifically in that document the mistakes we wanted to avoid, the things we wanted to do intentionally instead, broke it down into habits that would lead us to our desired outcome and help us avoid the negative alternative. We condensed it all down into these core values, which I had a graphic designer friend make this manifesto type graphic for me, had it printed, framed, and it's hanging on our living room wall. To this day, my wife says that's the best gift I ever gave her, so feel free to steal that idea if you want. But we look at these every day, and these core values really just are like boundaries in a way, where they let in the good stuff, they keep out the bad stuff. These help keep us on the right track. Now, if you're going to create your own core values, these are the questions I would recommend you ask. And this is all in that course as well inside of the library, as well as a whole bunch of discussion about it. But just for the sake of the list here, what legacy do you want to leave? What are you passionate about? When are you happiest in life? What gives you life? What do you value? What do you absolutely refuse to do? How do you measure success? How do you want people to remember you? These aren't the only questions that you can ask, but they are a decent starting point anyways for these types of questions. All right, so we've reviewed with the personal retreat, we review the life theme, we review the core values. The next part is to review the journal entries. I don't journal for the moment when I write those things down. I actually journal for future me to review these things in my personal retreat. I usually do this inside of Obsidian, so I've got a short little screencast here that I can walk you through this. This is actually my personal retreat template. And this personal retreat was done for Q3 of 2024. This was the end of August, so almost a year ago. But it will show you how this works. So I've got a note there for my life theme. I help people find their why, multiply their time and talent, leave a bigger dent in the universe. And then the family core values are right there. My personal core values have been added since then, so I review those as well. But those are just transcluded notes inside of Obsidian. And then there's all those links there for the journal entries, the gratitude, the wins, the ideal future, and the eulogy, which I'll get to in a moment. But these journal entries, I actually capture these to my daily note. And then those all get rolled up using a query. So here's what this looks like. Whoops. Yeah, so let's click on journal entries. Okay, so here's the query. And it's showing this basically in chronological order. So the newer ones are at the top, and it's grabbing the bullets that have the tags. So in this case, hashtag journal/entry. And it's showing those broken down by date. So when I'm reviewing my journal entries, literally I am clicking this link and I am scrolling down this list for roughly 30 days and just reviewing those entries. And then I do the same thing with gratitude, and I do the same thing with wins. Okay, so these are my gratitude entries. I try to force myself to every single day pick something that I'm grateful for and log that in Obsidian on my daily note. That all gets rolled up here, and then it shows up in these queries. All right, so those are gratitude. Let's close those, and then I'll show you wins. Wins are the ones that I have trouble with. I probably should force myself to find wins more frequently than I do. Just have a couple of them here from the last quarter. These are all related to the launch of Life HQ, which is my done for you Obsidian Vault. That is at lifehq.practicalpkm.com, and it's basically all of the workflows prepackaged. All the settings are pre-configured. All the plugins are pre-installed. So like there's all the personal retreat stuff is in there, as well as like step-by-step instructions on how to use all the workflows. But that's basically what this was. This was the personal retreat as I was trying to build that product and get it ready for sale. So that's the first part of this. Now, I mentioned the ideal future and the eulogy. So that's actually the next part of the personal retreat. When I'm talking about creating an image, I'm really talking about an image of a day in the life of future you. So your ideal future per se. But really, it's what does a day in the life of future you look like? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get specific. We're trying to paint a picture here and describe our ideal future in vivid detail, because we need to see it before it can really become real. And this is the thing that people struggle with sometimes, because they don't want to give themselves permission to think big like that. It's almost like if they describe their ideal future and they don't get it, they're going to be more disappointed than if they don't think about it at all. And on one hand, I understand that, but what actually happens is once you get clear on what a day in the life future you looks like, you can actually find ways to live out aspects of that sooner than you thought maybe you would be able to. So this kind of comes back to a concept from the book Lifeonaire, which is a play on the word millionaire. If a millionaire is someone who has an abundance of money, then a lifeonaire is someone who has an abundance of life. So what would it look like if you had an abundance of life? What does your ideal existence look like? All right, and it's not always, well, I've got a yacht and I've got 5 houses, etc. Again, a day in the life of future you. So get specific. And at this step, we're really just jotting down all of the details. So what time do you get up? What do you do during the day? Who's there with you? What kind of job do you have? What's your state of mind? Where do you live? What do you do for fun? What do you do for exercise? What kind of car do you drive, if that's important to you? What is your relationship with your significant other like? What's your relationship with your kids like? And then you want to make sure, again, these are just starter questions, but you start here and you write all this stuff down. And that's the real important part. You have to write it down. If it isn't written down, it doesn't exist. The minute that you write it down, whether it's with a fancy fountain pen or you've got, I've got this saying, thoughts disentangle themselves through lips and pencil tips, but also clicky keyboards. So mine actually exists in Obsidian. But then once you've got that down, then your brain is kind of constantly looking at that, thinking about it, and trying to figure out how can we start to live aspects of that rich life right now. And that's where the magic happens. So you want to dream big, but then you want to act small. And if you act small consistently enough, you're going to get the big results that you're after. So this is what this looks like in Obsidian for me. Here is my ideal future note. All right, and I'll share the details of this. You can read it on the screen if you want, but I'm going to say it out loud too, just because I feel like it does something in me when I read it. It is a little bit vulnerable, And then also, hopefully it's a little bit inspiring if you're just listening to this, after the fact or something. These are the details of a day in the life of future me. I wake up at 6 a.m. and I write for 2 hours. After a short break, I go work on a business that I'm building with a skilled team that is passionately aligned with the vision. My schedule is very flexible, and I take regular midday breaks to go for a run or go to the gym. I have lots of time to think. I have lots of time to create. My family's at home with me. We enjoy spending lots of time together. We prioritize being together. We have dinner together almost every night. Regular have deep, meaningful conversations while sharing a meal together. I live in a house with a view of the woods and the lake. I can work from anywhere. I coach middle school and high school sports. I've got energy to play with my kids. I have regular board game nights, or we have regular board game nights as a family. We serve at church, help lead multiple ministries. I have occasional coaching meetings where I help people multiply their potential, but not so many that I feel like I can't give my very best to my clients. My wife and I have enough money. We're able to contribute to every cause we believe in. I'm involved in my community, enjoy working with others to make it a better place to live. Okay, that's my ideal future. And there are aspects of that, obviously, that are easier to achieve than others, but that's okay because little by little, we're making progress on this. Okay, now the next thing here, if we go to the next slide, this is the one of my eulogy. So this is basically if I were to pass away today, what I would want people to say about me. And this one always feels a little bit weird when I read it, but Mike Schmitz was a loving husband to his wife, Rachel, and an ever-present father to Toby, Joshua, Jonathan, Malachi, and Adelaide. His family was his first ministry. He always made sure they were a priority. He frequently said no to business opportunities, to go on adventures with the people that he valued the most. He was also a committed member of his church. When he wasn't spending time with his family, he could often be found serving there. He believed God had blessed him richly, gave generously of his time and treasure to those who had need. He invested heavily in others and did his best to help them reach their full potential. Mike's life was driven by a desire to be a good steward of what was entrusted to him by God. He desired to inspire, encourage, and teach others to connect to their calling, discover their destiny, and live the life they were created for. Everything he did was filtered through this life theme, and he helped others accept responsibility, gain clarity, take action in living a purpose-driven and meaningful life. He helped countless people find their why, multiply their time and talent, leave a bigger dent in the universe. This is the one that always gets people. He was an entrepreneur who loved building businesses and making art. Before he died, he wrote several New York Times bestselling books and gave away over $10 million to causes he believed in. I am nowhere near that, but it is inspiring to me. He taught his kids to be lifelong learners and to discover their own creativity. They have all followed in his footsteps as creative entrepreneurs who live life on their own terms. All right, so we've got the ideal future, what we're working towards, and the eulogy, kind of what we want to be said about us at the end. Different ways of considering this ideal future in my mind. So the next part is the Wheel of Life. This is not original to me, but I've modified it a little bit. It's designed to give you a visual representation of your current happiness in the major areas of your life. So this is not objective. There's no data really associated with this. The data is really just what you feel. So trusting your gut, that's the important part here. And then you want to use this to understand how the different parts of your life kind of fit together. So you essentially have this wheel. It looks something like this. You identify the major areas of your life that you want to keep tabs on. You rate your happiness in those areas on a scale from 1 to 10, and then you pick the 1 to 2 lowest areas, and you set goals to move the needle in those areas. You're not going to try and touch every one of these areas every single quarter. That's important. So this is what my first Wheel of Life looked like. This was right after I actually got let go from a job before I joined the Blanc Media team. And as you can see here, my lowest area at this point was social. Even though career was low, this was the one that I was targeted. You can't address all of them. You want to pick the lowest one, and you want to apply the concept of intentional imbalance here and bolster that area. All right, so what we did, my wife and I, to bolster this area was we got this idea from Nir Eyal from his book Indistractable. And I'd also just read The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker recently. And so we started having this idea. Nir does these things called kibbutz, where they would have a couple families over and the kids would go play downstairs and the parents would have a meal and they would seed a question. They would have very deep, intentional conversations. So we started doing that. We bought new furniture for our living room that facilitated those conversations, things like that. So we created basically a structure or a system to help bolster that particular area. And the reason that you're just doing one area at a time is that, kind of alluded to this already, but I believe personally, work-life balance is a myth. There's really just your life. You have to figure out how it all works together. And in the always connected culture that we have, this is harder than ever, because if you work remote, you can, within a couple of seconds be at work. Whereas in the past, you would have at least had to get in your car and drive to your workplace in order to go to work. Literally, it's anywhere, anytime. And so you got to figure out where you're going to put the boundaries and how you're going to make all this stuff work. The key concept here is intentional imbalance. So we're not trying to balance everything. We're trying to pay attention to the areas that need our attention right now, bolster those, and then move on to another area, which is why the personal retreat every quarter is very helpful, because I can neglect the other areas that are doing well for a little bit. I've got habits and routines that are going to basically take care of those. But then I can focus on the area that needs my attention and then reevaluate next quarter and then pick a different area. So this is what the Wheel of Life for me looks like inside of Obsidian. And if you click on the little gear here, or the little code thing there, you can see the actual code. This is using a plugin called Obsidian Charts. And this is the code that powers that chart. And basically I've got the different areas like spirit, mind, body, friends, family, significant other, career, work, mission, and money. And then I've got the scores, and then all that data gets translated into that funny looking graph that you saw there. Now, I also, in addition to the scores, I also create these headers for the different sections with the score, and just jot down a couple of bullets as to why I gave it the score that I did. So this just helps me kind of get clear on what's actually leading to that feeling I have, the current happiness or lack of happiness with that particular area. All right, so there's the different categories, there's the different bullets. I won't go through all those details, but this whole part takes roughly an hour for the Wheel of Life. I've got a slide later where I'll mention how I break down all 8 hours in this. But this part, you're spending a little bit of time here. And then you get to the retrospective. Okay, so the retrospective is really where a lot of the reflection happens, and you're priming the pump for the planning that you're going to be doing also. So with the retrospective, you're really trying to ask questions. This is the most powerful part of the personal retreat for me, asking those questions and then giving your brain time and space to unravel things. When you ask the right questions, the answers usually become clear. One of my favorite authors, one of my favorite books, actually, is Personal Socrates. I will grab the link to this one as well. This is by Mark Champagne, Personal Socrates. And he has something on the back of that book. These are all like little character sketches of famous people and the lessons that we can learn from their life. But really, it's a collection of questions. And he has on the back cover of this book, I believe, this saying that a single question has the power to completely change your life. And I totally agree with that. So I have tried lots of different questions for my retrospective. I've broken the retrospective into 2 parts. There are 6 questions that I use here. The first set of questions here are really considering, the last 90 days. What did I accomplish? What went well? And what could have gone better? Now, these are intentional questions. So, like I said, I've tried lots of them. What did I accomplish? I remember the first personal retreat I did. I went into it thinking it's September. I really haven't made much progress on anything yet this year. And I just started jotting down all the things that I was actually able to do. And I got done and I was like, actually, I kind of crushed it. So I lose sight of the things that I'm actually doing well, and just making a list of my accomplishments helps me kind of celebrate some of those wins. What went well, those are encouraging things that, this is the part of the system that really is clicking. And then what could have gone better? Because I'm a systems thinker, what is broken, but also more importantly, why is it broken? So if you don't like the output that you're getting, change the input or change the process, right? So let's experiment with new inputs, new processes in hopes of getting better results. So this is typically where I take the break. This first part of the retrospective takes about an hour. The second part here, though, this is where the real magic happens. If you get nothing else out of this session, just take these next 3 questions. Okay, so they're going to be maybe the brilliance of these is lost in the simplicity. But the first question is, what should I start doing? And the second question, what should I stop doing? And the third question is, what should I keep doing? Now, don't brush these off, because what these do, these are purposely designed. Okay, so what these questions do is they don't lead your brain down a default path. They force it to consider all the options. Now, that also leads to one of the traps when doing a personal retreat. If you're following my framework and you get to these 3 questions and you start just jotting down, items, bullet lists, these are the things that I should start doing, things that I should stop doing, things that I should keep doing. After about 30 minutes, you'll have things on those lists. And your brain at that point is going to say, well, that was fun. Let's move on to the next thing. And you really need to force yourself to stick with this for at least 2 hours if you really want to get to the good stuff. Every single time I do a personal retreat, the same thing happens. I get some stuff for these lists right away, and I'm tempted to just, okay, there, check the box, that one's done. And I just continue to stick with it. I continue to just noodle on these. And about an hour and a half in, my brain gets to a whole nother level. And that's where you really find the good stuff. You give yourself permission to consider things that you wouldn't have considered at the beginning of the process, if that makes sense. So that's where a lot of the good stuff really comes from. And at this point, it's just jotting down, whatever comes to mind in a bullet list. They're just options. It's not, I'm going to start doing this, I'm going to stop doing this, I'm going to keep doing these things. But really, it helps you identify what's working, what new things you want to try, what you're excited about. But then if all you ever do is start new things, you'll quickly run out of margin. And I've made that mistake before. So every single time I do a personal retreat, I actually force myself to pick at least one thing that I'm going to stop doing. And what that does is it kind of systemically builds in the margin for me to. So again, don't rush this. You'll probably have that list after about 30 minutes, but just continue to think about what's on this list for another hour and a half. You want 2 hours at least. That's when you get to the really good stuff. Okay, so this is what this actually looks like for me. Here's an example of what I accomplished, what went well, and what could have gone better. So here you'll see a lot of stuff about the things that I was doing prior to Life HQ, like trying to grow YouTube. Wonder what could have gone better. Craft and Commerce was great. The Life Theme cohort keeps getting better. Things like that. All right, but then the next part here, what should I start doing, stop doing, keep doing? Again, this is where we get the really good stuff. So got a list there for things to start doing, things to stop doing, and then things to keep doing. Now at the bottom of this is where we really focus on our intentions. You'll see I've got one goal. That is the Life HQ launch in this particular example. And then I've got another checkbox item here where we review or revise the ideal week. Okay, so you go through this retrospective that kind of primes the pump for setting your goals. And then the goal is really, I don't know, I don't like the word goal. I like the word intention. Really, these are things that we want to work towards, but it's not like a SMART goal. It's very specific. We're going to do all this stuff by this time, and if we don't achieve it, it's a binary state, so it's either pass, fail. We want to just keep moving in the right direction. We want to take consistent action. Remember, consistency is the key. So really we want to think about, how do I make winning inevitable? If you want to write a book, winning, making that look inevitable is showing up and writing every single day. Once you've written enough words, writing the book is done. Okay, and as you do the things consistently, that helps you pick up steam. Remember, consistency beats intensity. Show up every day, or at least consistently. And then when you start building a streak, you gain that momentum. Before you take consistent action, though, you do need to figure out when you're going to do that. And that's where planning the perfect week comes in. You kind of pre-identify the spots in your week where you think you're going to follow through on taking action towards these intentions. Patrick Rohn once said that everything has to be done within the context of time. I really do believe that. Dwight Eisenhower has this quote that I really like: "Plans are worthless, but planning is everything." The reason he says this is that when you create a plan, you are kind of pre-deciding how you're going to do things, and that has a lot of value. However, once you get into the battle, then the plan is going to change. And if all you're going to do is stick to the details of what you had pre-decided, that's going to end up not great. So you don't want to, get stuck in the details of the plan, but the making of the plan is really where the value lies. So you want to give every hour a job. That's kind of what time blocking does. You provide intention behind every hour of your day, and you schedule time for the fun stuff too. So this is kind of what my first planning your perfect week looked like. And then this is the one that I currently do. It ends up in Fantastical. And I've got these different color-coded sections here for the different modes that I'm going to be in. All right, so that's what I am reviewing there in my ideal week. This is actually what that ideal week looks like as a table inside of Obsidian, because I love me some Obsidian. All right, now the intentions that I set and the things that are on this personal retreat file, those also get rolled up in Obsidian into my weekly and daily notes. So this kind of gets into the concept of multi-scale planning. This is what a weekly note looks like. And you'll see at the top of every weekly note, I've actually got a link to that personal retreat, the current personal retreat note. So that is in the template file, and I can click on that and I can review that when I do my weekly planning. And then the daily planning, we want that to align with what you see on this weekly plan as well. So you go through all that process, you make all those plans, and then by the time you're done with this, you're usually pretty exhausted. And so give yourself some space and some margin, because this will take a lot out of you, this process, which is actually why what I currently do is I split this up. Here's the whole process. You review the life theme, review your core values, review your journal entries, review your ideal future, the wheel of life, and the retrospective. All happens before the break. I typically do that on the first day. The place that I usually go was called Getaway House. Now I think it's called Postcard Cabins. Let me grab a link to this. These are like these tiny homes that they stick in the middle of the woods. Yep. Okay, here they are. So this is Postcard Cabins. There's one of these about 40 minutes from my house. So this is where I tend to go. They're air conditioned in the summer. They're heated in the winter. And I'll go there. I'll check in. I think you can check in at like 3 p.m. So I'll do the first part of this before going to bed in the evening, having dinner, going to bed. And then I'll wake up in the morning. I'll do retrospective part 2, my goals and habits, reviewing, revising the perfect week. That all happens the next day. Because I got to check out, I think, by 11. So the first part takes about 4 hours. Second part takes about 4 hours. There's a trail that I walk typically while I'm doing that, which I start doing, stop doing, keep doing, which I find very effective. So I promise, time frames for these. The retrospective part 1, I'd say that's about an hour. The wheel of life, that's about an hour. Reviewing my ideal future, that probably takes about 30 minutes. Reviewing your journal entries, 30 minutes. Core value life theme, 30 minutes a piece. So that's roughly 4 hours in the first part. Retrospective part 2, that's the longest part. That's the start, stop, keep doing. That's 2 hours. Goals and habits are setting your intentions, breaking it down into milestones, the consistent actions you're going to take. That is 1 hour. And then reviewing, revising your perfect week, putting those blocks on your calendar where you're going to take that consistent action. That's about an hour as well. So roughly 8 hours. If you were to try and 80-20 this, you were going to try to condense this down. You wanted to get it done in, 4 hours. I would say you could probably review the life theme and the core values more regularly as part of like your weekly planning. Then you wouldn't have to take the time to do that when you're in the personal retreat. Journal entries and ideal future. Again, you can kind of systemize that stuff as well. I think the wheel of life you really need to do at the beginning of your personal retreat. The retrospective part 1 and part 2 as well, but then also the goals, habits, revising the perfect week. Those could probably fall to weekly planning as well. So I still think you're probably at about 4 hours. And remember, the real key is that you get somewhere that you don't normally go. And then the last part of this is that you really do need to consistently do it in order to see the progress. I saw results because I was trying to implement the 12-week year and I was failing miserably. But after I did one personal retreat, it kind of changed everything. However, after about 3 or 4, that's when I really hit my stride. Now it's an indispensable part of my planning process. It really is very, very important to me, and I never skip it. All right, so that's the presentation part. Now I mentioned I've got a new resource I wanted to share. Okay, so I'm gonna switch the camera over here. Give me a second. Okay, so this is a personal retreat planner, and let's see if I can't zoom out just a hair so you can see the whole thing here. No, it's okay. Not sure that's okay, almost. I've been working with Jesse Phillips from New Year for quite a while. We have the focused calendar, which is like the big wall calendar, shows the whole year at a glance. But they're broken down into quarters, so it kind of is a useful tool for doing these this quarterly planning as well. I'm working with him on this actual physical planner for doing a personal retreat. So this is not available yet, but we are working on this, and I can grab real quickly here the link if you are interested in joining the wait list for this. Actually, I'll share that in a little bit. But this is just a little bit about what we went through today, brief version of the personal retreat process. There are actually going to be a couple pages here which are going to walk through all the individual steps that I kind of walk through in detail during this session. But just basically, if you're brand new to this, you picked up the planner, you have no idea what you're doing, it'll kind of walk you through it. Then there is the sample life theme, or sample personal retreat. So life theme, core values, ideal future, sample wheel of life, and then the different areas. So kind of the bullets behind the score that you gave. What did I accomplish? What went well? What could have gone better? And then what should I start doing, stop doing, keep doing? So pages for all of this stuff. Your intentions, there's space for 2 of these, but you really can't do more than 2. And in fact, I would probably recommend that you just start with 1. And then the perfect week, I'll turn this way so you can see it a little bit better. But this is basically planning your perfect week. And again, this is just the example. So this is assuming that you're coming to this brand new. You've never done anything like this before. And you're like, what in the world does this actually look like? But then the real value of the planner here is that you actually do this yourself. So these are the pages then, the blank pages, where you actually could take this notebook only, do a personal retreat. Okay, you've got all the different areas. You've got the wheel of life. You've got retrospective questions. You've got your intentions. You've got your perfect week. That is the beginning of the what Cal Newport would call multi-scale planning, where you align your quarterly, weekly, and daily goals or daily plans. All right, so this is kind of the foundation, and this is what you could do with the personal retreat part. And then from there, there are weekly plans and daily plans for up to 13 weeks. So 90 days, 12-week year, but there's a buffer week essentially. This is what the weekly plan looks like. So you've got basically your 3 most important things that you're trying to get done that week and why they are important. And then this isn't time blocked for the days, but basically the big things that you want to do in the morning and in the evening for each of the working days. All right, and then this week will be successful. This is kind of like painting success. So if you were able to do this one sentence thing, that's how you would define success for the week. And then there are excuse me, then there are the daily action plans. So this is actually something that we provided a PDF with the calendar the last couple of years. And so you've got the highlight. This is kind of like the big thing you want to get done during the day. And then this is where you would time block all of the hours of your day. Time blocking is a whole nother concept, which is probably worthy of a live stream at some point. But you give every hour a job. And then it's not just the stuff you have to do, it's the stuff you want to do. You write down the tasks that you need to do in this space here, and then there's basically checkboxes kind of here, so you can track the status of those. And then any notes that you take during the day can go in this spot right here. There's also in the back a bunch of just blank pages that you can use for notes. Gratitude, so you put down something that was successful or some gratitude that you have, and then this is kind of like, painting success for the day. Today will be awesome if, and you fill in the blank there. So the goal is to have the daily plans align with the weekly plan, because if you consistently take action on those daily plans, the weekly plan should take care of itself. If you consistently execute the weekly plans, that should take care of the quarterly plan in the personal retreat section. Okay, so all this stuff aligns, all this stuff rolls up, and there are basically 13 weeks in this planner. So you've got all that different stuff in here, and you can use this for your personal retreat planning, but then also your daily plans, and you have all of the reference material basically inside of this this planner. So that's what the planner looks like. Now I actually don't have a price for these yet. I do know that we're going to offer a subscription. You can buy them one-off as well, but if you subscribe, you'll get a little bit of a discount, and then you'll also get my personal retreat video course, which I'm in the middle of redoing. So here's the personal retreat planner waitlist. And I'll be talking about this when it's ready, so you certainly don't need to all that's going to happen if you join this waitlist is that you're going to get an email when it's available. So it's something that Jesse and I have been going back and forth on for, gosh, it must be almost a year at this point. But as you can see, I've got the beta here. Just recorded the walkthrough video for it, and I'm pretty excited about this one. So that's what I've got for you today. If anyone has any questions about personal retreats, I probably should have mentioned this earlier. I'm happy to answer any questions that people have. Just put them in the chat. But if there are no questions, then we can wrap up here in a few minutes. But yeah, this personal retreat process, this is something I've been doing every quarter for several years now. And for the most part, I've been doing this in Obsidian. In fact, I have a personal retreat template file that is in my Obsidian starter vault. So vault.practicalpkm.com is the free Obsidian starter vault. I can actually grab a link to that. Give me 1 second. This has, in addition to the personal retreat template file, a bunch of other templates, resources. And if you are brand new to Obsidian, this actually is a great way to get started, because there's a whole bunch of tips and things in there with not videos because they would be huge, but animated GIFs which walk through different things. So great place to start your Obsidian journey if that's of interest to you. All right, and then I've also got on my YouTube channel some different resources for this. So youtube.com/Mike Schmitz is my YouTube channel. I've upgraded the quality of my videos significantly in the recent months, but if you go all the way back to, it says 2 years ago. I don't think it was actually 2 years ago, but it was definitely more than a year ago. One of my first videos on how to do a personal retreat in Obsidian. That's right here. Personal retreat in Obsidian. And I'm actually in the process of with those older videos. My process has changed a little bit, and then also I've got better equipment now, so I'm actually updating a bunch of these older videos. If you have suggestions for what you would like to see covered in a video, I'm always looking for inspiration, so please just let me know. But how to do a personal retreat in Obsidian is one of the first videos that I created back after I went through Ali Abdaal's PTYA. In fact, in that video, I can see I had not implemented all of the stuff that he had talked about. So you'll see like a light behind the guitar, but you won't see a light behind the things on the bookshelves. That's something that I added as a result of going through that. And that feels like it was forever ago. But yeah, there's the personal retreat stuff. There's a video, which is even older than that, on journaling in Obsidian, which that's my most used Obsidian workflow is journaling. I talked a little bit about it here today on how you can roll up those journal entries when you're reviewing them for a personal retreat. But man, if my Obsidian journaling workflow broke, I don't know what I would do instead. I mentioned this in my newsletter, but there's an app called Actions for Obsidian, which is kind of the basis for this. Let me grab that real quick. And what this does, it's an app that you pay for, and what it does is it adds shortcut actions to the Shortcuts app. And then there's an Obsidian plugin that actually provides some additional hooks, so you can send things to your periodic notes, whether it be weekly notes, daily notes, etc. Perfect for journaling. So I actually have this workflow where I all these daily questions, my scores on a scale of 1 to 10. Let's see, I think I've got that video in here somewhere. Journaling in Obsidian using daily questions. Yeah, this is the one. And again, this is really old, but here's the link to journaling in Obsidian. Yeah, I'm working on redoing all of those, but that'll give you an idea for the workflow. I capture these daily questions, and then there's actually a little bit newer one here which shows the shortcut. The shortcut basically takes all my responses on a scale from 1 to 10 using this number pad, and then it'll create this text block out of that, and it will then embed that in the appropriate section, replacing a placeholder inside of my my active daily note. So this is the shortcut workflow video. Right. And if people are interested in me walking through the journaling workflows in one of these live streams, I'm happy to do that. I'm continuing to do these live streams. I think this is the 4th or 5th one that I've done. I'm still kind of in the experimenting phase with these. I met Doc Rock at the MaxDoc conference in July. He encouraged me to give these a shot. I still not real comfortable with these, but I've shown up 4 or 5 weeks in a row now, and I've seen enough success with them that I think I'm going to keep doing them at least for a little while. Yeah, so if this is usually the time that I will do these, is Wednesdays at 12 p.m. I could definitely do a better job promoting these. I sent out I think a message on social media just a few minutes before we started here, but part of the hard part for me is figuring out what exactly I'm gonna talk about, and then also I'm not used to just presenting. I like getting the feedback via the chat, or even better with video. So yeah, if you find these helpful, please let me know. Let me know, share them, post a comment, whatever. And then also, if you've got anything that you'd like to see me cover, happy to do that as well. I got a couple ideas. I could definitely walk through the journaling stuff. I could definitely do some task management stuff. All of those workflows are pre-built in Life HQ, like I mentioned. So I could also just walk through Life HQ and answer people's questions on any of the workflows there. That might be the most efficient way to get workflow questions answered. Yeah, thanks everyone for being on, and good luck on your next personal retreat. I do encourage you, right before I sign off here, I guess, give this a shot. If you've not tried this before, even if you can't get away for an entire day, Do get away for an extended period of time and wrestle with some of those questions. I think if you do that even a couple of times in a row, get a couple different feedback loops, it has the potential to completely change your life. So definitely recommend that you give this a shot and see if it doesn't provide the motivation that you need to consistently take action on the things that are important and the clarity to cut the things that aren't. It's exactly what I found, and I believe it can do the same thing for you. So thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.